What is up, guys? I am the one and only Eagle Double T, and in this video, I'm going to be counting down the top 5 Nintendo controllers of all time. So without further ado, let's begin. Coming in at number 5, we have the Super Nintendo controller. Now, as you can see, this is an off-brand controller. I don't play my Super Nintendo enough to make me want to spend money to buy a real Super Nintendo controller. So this is just an off-brand. This controller is basically a refined NES controller. The edges have been rounded off, and it has left and right bumpers. Now, the reason I put this controller on the list is because of the impact that it had on later controllers, such as the PlayStation controller. It has the same basic button layout with the bumpers, the 4 face buttons, the D-pad, and then the 2 buttons in the center. So this controller has been very influential throughout the decades of gaming. Coming in at number 4, we have the Wii U Pro controller. Now, the reason I put the Wii U Pro controller on this list is because it's a fairly solid controller all around. It feels well made, it's very lightweight, however it doesn't feel cheap. The buttons, the joysticks, the bumpers, the triggers, they're all fairly high quality. It has a very impressive 80-hour battery life. And on top of that, it has a very easily accessible battery. If anything ever goes wrong with the battery, all you have to do is unscrew this one screw right here. The battery casing comes off, and you can just replace the battery. It's very simple. And all around, it's just a very good controller. Coming in at number 3, we have the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons. Now, these are probably the most impressive pieces of hardware we've ever seen from Nintendo. They have a ton of built-in special features. They have gyroscopes, motion controls, a 20-hour battery life, HD rumble. They're very, very solid feeling. Very high quality, well made. All the joysticks and buttons feel fantastic. You can even use them as individual controllers if 2 people want to play. Lots of stuff you can do with these. If you don't like using them individually, you can put them on a grip and use them that way as one controller. There's just so many great things that this controller can do, so that's why it is number 3. Coming in at number 2, we have the GameCube controller. Now, the GameCube controller is probably the most comfortable controller in the history of Nintendo. The way it's shaped accompanies pretty much any size of hand. It's a very, very solid, very well-constructed controller. It's very unique in a lot of aspects. The C-stick is significantly smaller and differently shaped and colored than the regular joystick up top. The D-pad is small, but it is still a very good Nintendo D-pad. The button placement is very unique, and I love it. The A button is in the middle, surrounded by the X, Y, and B buttons. And that has these extremely, extremely comfortable triggers that are just awesome. The only thing I don't like about it is probably the Z button, which was like one little bumper that really wasn't that good. And to make the GameCube controller even better, later they released a wireless version called the Wavebird, which had insane battery life and range, and overall, the GameCube controller was just amazing. Coming in at number 1, we have the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. Now, in my opinion, this is probably the best Nintendo controller ever made. It has a 40-hour battery life, HD rumble, motion controls. Everything on the controller is very high quality. The triggers, the joysticks, the bumpers, the classic Nintendo D-pad. It has these very large, easy-to-press face buttons, which is probably one of my favorite things about the controller. Has a dedicated screenshot button, which is another thing I really like about it. It's just a very well-made controller. It also uses USB Type-C, which is pretty much what most controllers here in a few years will probably be using. It's pretty much the future of USB. It charges very, very fast. It's also extremely comfortable. It fits my hands perfectly. I can use this for a very, very long time without my hands ever cramping or feeling discomfort. So overall, I would say this is probably the best Nintendo controller ever. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, please leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you have not, and comment your favorite Nintendo controller down below. I am the one and only Eagle Double T signing off. Goodbye.